right now. I make sure like that I'm already live before I tweet, just in case people show. I guess they could for YouTube. They could show up early though. But the tweet is going live now, so you should be tagged. Both of you should be tagged in that. And we'll see. By the way, Eden, I don't know. You probably don't know this. This one is actually going to YouTube. So we've done these for my Twitch for a long time, and we haven't done to YouTube. But somebody asked me recently, like on a stream, like, why don't you stream to YouTube? And I was like, I should do that because I have like an audience on YouTube versus Twitch. I don't as much. So we're kind of experimenting. This is the first live episode of the podcast that's going to YouTube.
Oh, wow. I hope I don't mess anything up.
If anything, it'll be us.
What do you have, like 100 or how many thousands? No pressure.
Yeah. But the amount of people that show up won't be.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Your images look great, by the way.
Who are you talking to?
You.
Oh, yeah. So the one I generated, that one, that's the cover image for the stream with the culinary stuff. Yeah. Oh, I was going to say we should make those 1080p, Amy, unless you have a specific reason not to, so that they'll fit more standard cover images.
Yeah, I'll do that. The other thing I'm noticing is we need to update StreamYard. This branding template, that your subscribe button overlays the compressed FM logo. You have a subscribe button in the bottom right.
Oh, on YouTube? Okay.
Yeah, so I can take
Interesting. There's a million different like small things that you never think about. All right, just shared in Discord too. I'm gonna stand up also. Eden, where are you based?
I'm in Maryland.
Okay.
Right by DC.
Nice.
Yep.
We'll be I'll be in DC for like a day in October. We're flying into DC to then drive up to Pennsylvania for our wedding.
Hit me up if you got time. We're like 25 minutes from the White House.
That'd be cool. So you're like, that close. Cool.
Awesome.
Yep.
We went to a great steak house, and I'm trying to remember what it was called.
A steakhouse in DC?
But it was, I think it was.
I wouldn't know. Full disclosure, I'm vegetarian. I'd have no idea.
Okay. It's my husband had surgery at Walter Reed in March.
Nice.
And so we went after surgery. We're like, where do you want to eat? I mean, anywhere. And he's like, I want a steak.
Nice.
So in the place where we went, they brought out like the perfect portion of everything. It was so good. And then we were all done. And then they come out and they go, so this is your first time here. This might be a surprise. Here you go. And they gave everybody another steak.
Oh, wow.
Like a whole nother
You just
portion.
get like a whole nother steak.
Yeah. And at first I was like, I mean, was this just like scraps in the kitchen? Like, how does this work? But as we're sitting there, they do it for
like,
every single table. Every single table. Yes.
So what's the name of it? Or did you find it?
I'll have to find it. It's a fixed menu. So the only thing that you decide is how you want your steak. And then if you want an appetizer, like they have this mushroom that's so good with it. I don't know if you like mushrooms, but
I like well done, not like well prepared mushrooms.
Yes, and it pairs so well with the steak. So it's like your decisions are: do you want a mushroom or not, and what do you want to drink, and how do you want your steak? That's it.
That's a cool concept.
I like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like freeing to go to a restaurant and not have to make a lot of decisions.
Right.
Well, you say that, but it drives me crazy when you go to a restaurant and the waiter's like, hey, do you want me to just pick some stuff out for you? I'm like, no.
Does that happen?
Yes.
I mean, I've done that occasionally.
Like if I'm with a group and it's like family style, they're like, I'll just bring some stuff for the table. And I'm like, no, thank you.
I can't do that. I'm too picky with my food.
Really?
And being vegetarian, I just can't.
I'm also not a fan of family style.
Yeah. I could definitely do it. So one of the best Thai places I've ever been to, I think it's called Thai Bird Kitchen in Amsterdam, which is weird.
Nice.
But that's what we've done the couple times that we went, was just like, bring us out like enough food basically to feed 6 or 8 people, however many people we had, and it was all delicious. But yeah, if there's things that would really not be exciting, then you don't really want to take that risk, I don't think. By the way, what's up, everyone in the chat? We got a few people hanging out with us. I think the last message is like Greek, maybe. I don't know if that's like meant to be confusing. My guess is that it's Greek. Anybody read Greek by any chance?
I also think it's Greek, but I don't read Greek.
Yeah. Anyways, thank you. So medium rare restaurant, Amy.
Mhm.
That's
Yep.
cool. I'm gonna post that in the regular chat too, if anybody's curious. I'll try to go. Eden, I won't invite you to that. We'll figure out another like coffee thing to do.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Unless he just
that
wants
sounds
to
cool.
go eat mushrooms.
They
I've
actually
heard
have
they're really good.
There are amazing restaurants in DC, so
Yeah.
if you have
Yeah.
time, for sure, check some stuff out there.
It's funny. I need to do a better job. We should get started here in a second, but I need to do a better job of like, I talk to people conversationally, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be in so and so. Like, I'm gonna be in London in a couple of weeks, and I'll talk to a few people that live there, and I'm like, yeah, we'll totally get together. But I don't remember to like make notes of like who I talked to about meeting, and then I get there and I'm like, oh, I forgot to tell so and so and so and so. So if you happen to like remember to check in a couple weeks to remind me, please feel free.
You know, it'd be fun, James, is if we do a meetup, because I know we're traveling. We have a few events together coming up.
Mm-hmm.
If we did a meetup, because then it's, hey, we're going to be here, and then it falls on them.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
I thought about advertising that. Like, I think I'm going to try to do that in London. Just like send a broad message out on Twitter. Like, I'm going to get coffee at 3:00 in the afternoon at this place. Yeah. If anybody in
that could
London,
be dangerous.
It could be, but like
you have a following, dude. I would be careful.
But that would like dangerous from like packing out the restaurant, or dangerous like somebody attacking me. I'm assuming you're talking about like too many people.
I think I guess both, but I was more of like just I think you could pack the place depending on where you are, obviously. Like, I'm sure there's random places where it won't.
That'd be a cool problem to have. Like, how cool would that be if you got like too many people that are just excited to meet each other, right? Like, that'd be fun. I don't know.
Yeah, that could be cool.
But hopefully I wouldn't get attacked or anything. I can't imagine that would be the case.
Well, tech is so niche that it would be kind of funny to have a bunch of geeks in one place, and then people would be like, "Who's that?" Like,
oh yeah. Well, that's what we do we do this in Memphis. I do a monthly thing at Panera now. Of it's called Code Together. So it's this organization called Code Connector. Wow, sorry. Code Connector, which is like one of the most amazing groups there is out there. Online, virtual, and then in person. And we do this thing every Sunday where we just go to a coffee shop and hang out. So we'll have like, maybe it's just 5 to 10 people. It's gotten bigger the last couple of times. But it's just nice to hang out in a casual way. No like presentation, just hanging out, chatting, asking questions, that sort of stuff.
That's cool.
Welcome again, people. We should get started. But Dimitri from Germany, Guten Tag. Guten Tag or Guten Morgen, but it's afternoon.
No, it's in the evening. It's dinner time there.
So Guten Nacht. I don't know if it's night is Nacht. I don't know if it's like I don't know what evening is. Anyway, hello, Ahmed, Hyperlapse, MP with I think the Greek message mark, Roshan, Roko, Christian. Welcome. This is the first live episode of Compressed on YouTube. Hopefully it goes well. We'll see how it goes. I'm excited about it. If not, then whatever. We tried. Yeah, we gave it our best shot. It's 6 p.m. Christian, are you in Germany? Yeah, it makes sense for Germany time because I think it's 6 hours to London and then probably another hour to somewhere in Germany. Cool. Guten Abend is afternoon. Cool. I'm a big like language nerd, by the way. That's probably the like most boring thing.
You speak Spanish, right? I know you do that.
Speak Spanish.
Fluently.
I read Spanish fluently. I don't speak as much anymore. So like I've read the entire Harry Potter series and Dan Brown series.
Oh, Spanish. That's impressive. So, like, that's fluent.
I can read much more than I can speak. And then I've been studying French for the last like since March, which has been a ton of fun. So there's a lot of overlap with those.
Nice.
I love
Is Jess still doing that with you? Like, do you guys speak French to each other?
She's not, no. Okay. Yeah, she started to do Spanish for a while and then kind of backed out on that too. Okay. I love people shouting out their time. So 10 p.m. in Nepal, 6 p.m. in South Africa, 7 p.m. in Jordan. That's really cool. Welcome everyone from all over the world. I love the internet. All right, if y'all are ready, we can kick it off and get started.
Let's do it.
Can I ask a quick question?
I don't know.
When you were in school, how many oceans were there? I only remember there being 4 that we studied, but my son has a map test today, and there's 5 on his test.
This is going to be really bad. I would have said 7, but I think I was thinking continent.
That's what Henry said.
Yeah.
I don't remember the Southern Ocean being a thing.
Southern Ocean is the thing. So there's Pacific, Atlantic, Indian.
Mm-hmm.
This is embarrassing.
Arctic is the other one.
Arctic,
okay. Yes.
And then Southern. So Southern Ocean. I don't think I've ever heard.
Okay, that makes me feel better. I just feel so old when I'm talking to my kids and I'm like, yeah, when I was in school, there was another planet called Pluto. Now we've decided it's not.
Yeah, it is. It is kind of wild how much stuff changes.
Okay, but we can start now. Thanks for clarifying.
Christian commented, I had 2 years of French in school. I can't even order a croissant. Je voudrais un croissant, s'il vous plaît. There's my French of the day. All right.
Muy impresivo.
Oh, impressive?
Yeah.
That sounded Italian.
I think. I don't know. Just start. This is getting embarrassing.
All right, we'll start. Between our lack of language and geography and ocean knowledge. All right. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Compressed FM, a podcast all about web development and design with a little bit of zest. My name is James Q. Quick, and I am a full-time technical content creator.
Hello, my name is Amy Dutton, and I'm the Director of Design at Zeal.
And in this episode, we are going to talk about going... Can you hear the dog chewing the toy?
Yes. A little bit. Go on.
Fine, embrace it.
All right, she'll be all right. And in this episode, we're going to talk about going from getting fired to owning your own agency with our special guest, Edan. So, Edan, welcome to the show.
Yo, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Do you want to introduce yourself and tell people a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. So, as you mentioned, I got fired as soon as the pandemic hit. I was working for a company that the whole mission was to cultivate the culture in the office, and we found ourselves within about a week having no business models. So I was let off with about 200 and something people really early. It all happened super fast as soon as things started to trickle down to the US. So in hindsight, I'm lucky that it all happened so quickly, because I kind of got a head start of, I'm seeing that the ball's still kind of trickling down for others today. So that all happened. I got fired, was kind of starting to look around of what I want to do. And I found myself deciding to go full-time into starting a digital agency called Webline. And within that digital agency, slowly with, like client projects and random bottlenecks that we ran into, I found myself seeing just clear opportunities for random little WordPress plugins, different things that maybe we can touch on. Some that were a hit and some that I realized, let me just stop this before it gets worse. And yeah, I'm a father of two and a 2 plus a furball, and we try to run the show here on a daily basis with my partner, and that's it. That's me.
Cool. I love it. It's so interesting how much like COVID changed the entire world in so many ways, especially for people going through career transitions, having to find different things. And it like partially the bright side is like people and companies kind of think about jobs and careers and what they're capable of doing differently. Like people that have been forced to learn a new skill, companies that have learned to like work remotely and to make that successful. Like we've made some progress, I think, for individuals and for companies and stuff through being forced to, unfortunately. And I went through similar experience of being let go a couple of months ago. And that has turned into me like the opportunity that I'm most excited about now, which is doing content full time. And obviously it sounds like it's turned into something really good for you. So I'm curious from a developer perspective, leading around that time that you got let go, did you have development experience going into that? Were you already like writing code, or was that something that you started learning during COVID?
So I touched code when I'm 33, about 16. I did like a C++ class in high school that I got like a D in because I just was not focused, and I knew exactly what needed to be done to pass class. No recommendations here, just being transparent. So I did touch code. I knew what it was about and, the capabilities, but I hadn't touched it for, I want to say at least a decade. And it was more of, I worked in Geek Squad, Best Buy selling computers, like a little bit of Apple retail. So like tech touched my world, but I never necessarily like would consider myself, thinking of my past as a developer or an engineer by any means. It all started kind of after, when I decided, all right, I'm going to go into this. I did own some domains. I feel like everybody in this world from a certain age bracket just owns domains.
The question is how many?
Right.
That's the question. The question should go back to Amy too.
No, I can't answer that. It's too embarrassing.
I don't know how many I have. I think I have I want to say about 15 total, something like that.
I was going to say it's more than the tabs that I have open right now.
Ooh.
You have more than 40 domains?
I don't have 40 tabs open.
Would you say 24 tabs?
I said 24.
Okay.
And
So
yes.
You've got like 30 domains?
And yes.
I think I've got 10. I'm curious for people.
Oh, 10 is not bad.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
I haven't bought a lot of ones that like I wasn't actually using. I'm curious for people that are listening with us, how many domains do you have? Let us know in the chat.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
That's a great question. Sounds
So
like
when you sounds like what?
Like a viral tweet.
I know, yeah.
Tweet that out and have it spin out.
100%, yeah. So how did you, well, actually, let me backtrack. I'm curious, the class in high school, like I have this big ranty thing that I don't get to talk about that often, of how like education, especially early on, is not tailored towards making it fun for the individual, right? Like it's about passing these tests and standardized tests and all these things. And teachers just get like, at least in a lot of the experience I've had with teachers, is like, this is the content and this is what you get and that's it. And it's just like, there's more to it. Like if you want to actually get people excited, translate this to something that they're actually excited about. So I'm not surprised at all that computer science for you, or the programming class you took, was like not the exciting thing at the time. Whereas now you do it and you love it. And it's the same thing for me of like, I've always loved to read. I never read my books in school because they were super boring and I didn't care about them.
That's funny.
So yeah. So what was your thought process? Like maybe a little bit more into the thought process then in school. And then how did that become a thing for you later on in 2020 to decide like, this is something I'm interested in actually pursuing?
Wow, it's just so far back. I think I just was too hyper and not aware of how to deal with, my hyperness. My parents not necessarily having like the best tools to do that. I have an incredible family, but I just think up until about age 18, if I think about it, no staff member that came across my path was able to help me, like kind of
channel
all my energy that I had. And it resulted in me just kind of knowing exactly what needs to be done to get through school, but no counselor or staff member. And I had great people in my life in public schools that I went to and whatnot. But I think, my parents come from a certain generation, and maybe I should have been on like Adderall at a certain age or some sort of mechanism to help cope with my crazy adrenaline and energy that I had at the time. So I think it was more of just curriculum being very strict, as you mentioned, and me just not having the right tools in my toolbox at the time to maybe channel all that energy to the right direction. Because I did have like, when I think back, I had like a robotic class where I'm thinking, wow, if I could take that again, like how did I just get like a D to get through, or like a C or whatever I got through that class? Like today I would kill to, go through that again. It sounds just like a playground for me. So yeah, I think I just had too much energy to cope with all that. And then like, as I learned, as I got older, without any medication or any of that, just to kind of channel all that and where to put it, and, learning how to deal with all that. I feel like I've learned to do a better job at it and take breaks when I need to and all that good stuff. And as I got fired, I just realized I feel like I want to see if I can go at this again. It's something, like I said, I owned a few domains. It's something I played around with. My agency is called Weblime, and I always tell people I owned weblime.com for years before I actually launched this agency. And I owned it because I had this, like little thing where I wanted to do it, and I just never had an opportunity, never felt comfortable, maybe confidence, maybe just a mix of life, kids, whatever. So as soon as the pandemic hit, I was just like, well, I got this batch of domains. I've had this, idea to do this like digital agency Weblime thing forever. Let me just go at it and see how it goes. And again, I had, I knew like that to learn to build a website, I would need to tackle like first things first is like HTML and then go from there. But my journey studying web development was a complete hot mess, not because of my crazy like energy or any of that. At that point, I was already like waking up every day at 4, being very strict with my time, knowing, you know, my kids are waking up at this time. I got to do this, I got to do that. But literally just not really having any sort of curriculum. If school had something strict, I had nothing at all. I didn't know like where to start and how to go about it. So yeah, I don't know if you want to dive into that, but my journey was getting into like Django and Python, and then slowly realizing this is a lot for a simple website. Like this is not, and I only realized that after getting like certified with the Free Code Camp for Python and like doing all these things in the Python world and thinking, I think I'm going in the wrong direction. I'm like cold calling clients, hey, let me build you a website, and I'm about to deliver this whole like Django thing for like a 4-page, you know, build. And I'm like, this is just too much digital ocean droplet, all this stuff that's happening. Like, you don't need this. So yeah, I'm not sure if you want to go into that, but my journey was like all over the place with web development and learning that.
I would be interested in hearing about that. And also, because you mentioned just your energy, what advice would you give to somebody that feels like they have the same energy that you do?
Ooh, that's a great question. First off, I think it just comes with time and like getting older, if I'm being honest, for me. You know, it took me years to even understand that what I shared about my parents, they're incredible. They just didn't have the right tools to deal with what I was trying to deal with at that time. You know, I've had discussions with my mom saying, you know, what I know today, coming from her, what she knows today, how she would have, you know, kind of managed that whole situation differently. And I never, you know, I was more of like a class clown, little troublemaker, scared of myself type of thing. It wasn't like a crazy, you know, like I never got arrested, never anything too extreme. And even people that have gone through that, I'm sure you can change things around. But for me, it really just came from getting older and slowly understanding and honestly just falling in love with reading about what I'm going through, asking myself a ton of questions, from my energy to God's existence to a bunch of things from my past, where I just was kind of craving for answers about everything I was going through. And, you know, kind of getting satisfied with certain areas where I didn't have like answers per se. And certain areas where I was like, all right, maybe I should start doing this. So like I said, sometimes I'm realizing I'm not being productive and I'll just get up and go for a walk. One of the best things that I did is just literally just add a block to my schedule where I get up every day at 11 a.m. if I don't have something like this right now, because you know, it's really my time. But I would, you know, go for a walk for like 35 minutes, sometimes with like a podcast or music, or sometimes just completely disconnected from everything and, you know, being out in this space. But yeah, I think it depends. I also like to play with things with my hands. I realize that also helps a ton. Like right now, I'm literally cracking this and trying not to make it annoying in the microphone. Yeah, so like
I always have something in my hand.
Yeah, hopefully that helps. I also went to, by the way, to get like professional help, where I got medication for it, and that medication did not. It helped channel the energy, but at the same time, I realized like there's all these side effects. These medications are essentially speeds of different sorts. So I realized like all the side effects were just not helping me. But also going through that transition, realizing, okay, if I'm not going to go with this, because the medication is helping, but it has all these side effects that I'm not enjoying, and really just, you know, like hurting my belly, all types of weird stuff. So going also through that and realizing, okay, maybe I can try to do this without too much, being medicated daily or once a week or whatever I slowly try to do. And then from there, just kind of winning myself back on that regard. So hopefully it helps. I'm not like a professional, but that was my own little, you know, experience of dealing with all that.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing.
Sure.
Yeah. I think the transparency I was commenting, the transparency of conversations that we're having these days in tech is like really, really important, from like a salary perspective, from an emotional health perspective, from a work-life balance. Like I think it's really cool to see the progression of a lot of the conversations. Obviously there's like negative stuff, but it seems like there's a lot of progression and like positivity and transparency for the benefit of the community as a whole. I'm curious for people that may not know, like I've got a decent idea, I think, of what this would entail, but the title is kind of like getting into like owning your own agency. So as an agency, what exactly would you be doing? What are you providing for people in terms of services?
So I initially had no idea. I knew some digital marketing because I was helping my parents on the side with their little construction local thing that they had going on that they ended up selling, and everything went well. A local mappa thing, but I taught myself through that just to run like, Facebook ads for them. And what else were we doing? Google PPC, just random things along those lines. So I had an idea of like the digital space prior. And as I was waking up every day and studying and doing all that stuff, I was also, so what I did is I split my day into like kind of like 2 or 3 sections. If I think about it, early morning was literally just kind of like block out the world. Nobody's awake, wife, kids, dog, everybody is sleeping. Twitter is calm. Everything is good. And I can just focus. Right. So that was my time to like pick up Django, try out Svelte, like learn all these million things that I'm stumbling across, and get active in free code camp and in the forum and get certificates. So I went through all that. And then like the second and third part of my day was I'm learning all this stuff, but I need to start getting money for what I'm doing. And so how do I put that into practice? So I started like cold calling, cold emailing. I put out signs. I did a tweet about it that went viral. I put up like I wish I had one. I usually have some under my desk. Just like a road sign, like you see for real estate and stuff like that. So like need a website, call here or whatnot, like something super simple. And I ended up closing deals from that. And so as I went through that transition, and again, like realizing I am like, it's not even over delivering for the client. I'm literally just complicating the shit out of their world. They don't need like this Django crazy thing. I then like started to realize, okay, like which direction am I going? What do I want to do? What's the alternative? What solutions are out there? And I found myself slowly like stumbling across like the Wix and the WordPress and all these different platforms, from open source to like no code solution type of thing. And just realizing honestly that it's just a better delivery for the client. And so I slowly found myself transitioning into like a no Python, no Django space, and more into like WordPress, and then understanding, okay, if I'm going into WordPress, I'm not going to be, you could touch code, but like the solutions that exist today, you don't necessarily have to touch code. So I found myself just like still on the side, having fun with like learning Svelte and watching random tutorials and messing around with that, just to see what's out there, to see if a bigger, opportunity comes my way, like how would I tackle that? Like what would I deliver? Would I go back to my Django world that I knew pretty well at the time, not like crazy, but enough to like deliver something that's pretty cool? And so I found myself just kind of going all in the WordPress environment, and then, having like little side things that I'm playing around for random opportunities that could come up. So that's about that. Hopefully that answered that question.
It sounds like similar, honestly, to me kind of bouncing around when I was getting into web. So I have a degree in computer science, and then I did technical evangelist for Microsoft for several years, which like sounds really cool. The downside is I never really wrote production code. Like it was years before I wrote production code and really started to learn code, to be quite honest, because I was in college and was similar to you, where I got good grades, but it wasn't because I knew what I was doing. It was like I knew what I needed to do to get good grades. Yeah. And I didn't know the things I should have when I graduated. So I'd avoided web development for so long. I know like the JavaScript ecosystem was still really hot, and I would hear about it. And JavaScript just honestly scared me because you could do whatever you want, right? So I took the Web Developer Bootcamp course by Colt Steele on Udemy, and it literally changed my life.
Nice. That's a great course.
Yeah, it's amazing. And so I did that, and then I was like playing around, and I was like, someone mentioned Ruby on Rails to me, so I went down this Ruby on Rails route for like a couple of months. Then I got into WordPress, like from a code perspective, like looking into the code and understanding how like people build custom themes and functionality and stuff. And then I eventually just circled back around to the just JavaScript ecosystem, and I've kind of like been there ever since. But I bounced around like several times in that first year of just kind of figuring out what all was there and what I was interested in.
I think a lot of people go through these like, journeys. It's not really clear. They're like, you're not really sure which path. Like there are great like, you know, you have free code camp and Udemy and all these different places where you can study nowadays, and they're all phenomenal, like top notch. You get it in like 4K, you can rewind, you can take notes, you can do your thing. Like, it's just incredible. But like, you don't really know where to start and what you need. You know, especially if you're like in a scenario like you're describing, or where I was at, where I'm like, well, I think I need a website, and you can build a website. I mean, you can answer that question with like a million solutions. And so I think a lot of people go through these journeys of just stumbling across different, you know, shiny little dev solutions and trying to make a decision of what to go with.
Speaking of the shiny, this is like my shiny moment of recently where I was migrating my site from Gatsby to Next.js.
I saw that.
I
didn't know how to take that from you.
So let me finish and then we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
But so I did this stream with Dan Jutan, who works with Astro, just to like get a feel for it. And as I was doing, I was like, this like just feels really, really nice. And the biggest thing, like the markdown integration, especially with syntax highlighting, like I'd been fighting with that in Next.js. And I was like, this tool just feels like it gets it for this, like this specific use case. It doesn't make me any less of a fan of Svelte and SvelteKit. It's just cool. Like it's cool to have the flexibility at times, honestly, from a content perspective, to like follow the shiny things that other people are looking to learn as well, and also just kind of have fun and see the differences between frameworks. But SvelteKit is still very top of mind for both Amy and I.
Well, it makes things easier to learn if you're following your passion or the things that you're interested in. If not, it's just, man, pulling out hair and teeth and everything. Sounds miserable and ugly.
Yeah. For me, by the way, one of the cool things was I was kind of like in this outer space learning all these different things. And as I was getting opportunities from the cold calling and random things that I was doing to kind of get that going, what really was good was clients just telling me, okay, I only need 4 pages, and me realizing like, okay, I'm kind of overdoing this. And like my learning became, you know, I would wake up at 4, and instead of getting like another certificate on free code camp just to say I got it and touch another like tech stack, it was more like now honed in on what's the simplest way that I could deliver this. And like, then, you know, what opportunities are there? Like which tech stack should I use and so forth. So to your point, I think it helps a lot when there is some sort of like an end goal or something, and also that you're really passionate about and enjoying. For me, it was like, you know, I finally have this opportunity, and I was passionate about from, you know, an opportunity to pay the bills from that perspective. I just got fired and all that went down. And then also I've been learning this thing before the world wakes up, and all of a sudden somebody out there is giving me an opportunity to perform with whatever I learned. And they didn't really care what I chose. Like all they thought was,
that it works.
How did it look? You know, is it loading good for them? Like not even in 0.5 seconds or 3, like none of that. Like SEO, nothing really mattered. It just, you know, the solution mattered. And so for me, it was like, I was passionate about it. I had an end goal for the client. I wanted to get paid at the end of the day. Like it all just came together. And then finally, you know, became like this WordPress thing. It could have been, you know, there's a few things that you could have used for that. So
I think you kind of joined around the perfect time where the JavaScript ecosystem was booming with opportunities to build things like what you're saying in a faster and faster, quicker, simpler way. Like all the focus on Jamstack and static site generators and the hosting platforms, all these tools. I think you were like in a prime position to like go into those. So I'm kind of curious, like, what was the evolution of that? Like, I'm specifically curious about how you got into SvelteKit and why you love that so much. So that's part of it. And then also, like, what are the other tools and things that you got really excited about that now maybe you're like part of the tech stack that you would use for stuff that you build today?
So it's funny, we don't even deliver this as much just because WordPress kind of meets most of what we do. But we do use it for some side projects that we can touch on. But what did it for me was, and I'm happy, again, I'm happy that I went through this journey because I feel like I learned a ton. And when people see like serverless, I feel like there's a lot of misconception there. Like there are servers running all that behind the scenes, and somebody's just doing a lot of, you know, heavy loading for you.
And you're like, no, I really understand how it works behind the scenes because I've done it.
Like for me, getting a Django project. Well, today there's like Render and some solutions out there where you can even spin up a Django project pretty easily. But when I was doing it, not to like make it seem like I'm some dinosaur, this was only like 2 years ago, but
I am.
I was gonna
Yeah,
say,
if you've ever
easy
done this-
comparing yourself to other people in the stream right now.
No, but if you've done this, then you know that like to spin up a Django project, even on a simple droplet in DigitalOcean, which is relatively already simplified, if you were to go to like, I don't know, some AWS like server farm and try to like, piece it all together, DigitalOcean even simplifies that, but you're still in some Linux environment dealing with permissions and Nginx and all these things that come together in that server, like from the firewall all the way to running that web server and like getting it all up and running, and then actually understanding how to even apply that to a Django framework, because just Nginx and a firewall and in a simple droplet and some Linux permissions, like that still
Just
won't
the
do it.
server. Yeah.
So like going through all that multiple times over and over and realizing like, Jesus, this is a lot. And then randomly, the site goes down, and then learning like, why the hell did that go down when I finally got it to go up? And so I went through, all that a bunch of times, and then started realizing what serverless really was, right? Like, okay, all that is happening behind the scenes for me, but I would have to kind of compromise and not necessarily compromise, but maybe not do it with Django. And there were a few other reasons why I decided to leave Django. And I love Django. I'm not trying to make this by any means like it does what it does and it does it great. But realizing that like if I'm touching React or SvelteKit or some other solutions that are out there, it really is, for one, capable of doing a lot of what Django kind of and Ruby on Rails kind of like, pioneered. Like you could do all this stuff from back to front. It's all in one world. And it's like this huge thing that can handle it. Where now these front end frameworks can do a lot. And like, if you know how to capitalize on whether it's Cloudflare workers or serverless functions from Vercel or whatever it is that you're doing, like you can literally spin up a great, holistic solution that's, having both back end, if you will, even though it's like a serverless thing, but like a back end and front end, and it's all coming together and really giving like a nice, I would say like punch or competition to what Django was and Ruby on Rails and some others was pioneering. So to me, it was like, okay, I can do all this and it would be serverless and I can still have like, functions happening again, like somewhat in a backend thing. Like what's the limits here type of thing? Like, what am I losing when I'm giving up Django? And then I ran into fun little thing. I ran into like with Prettier, like, so Django uses like a templating Jinja thing where Prettier was not playing nice with it. And I found myself like spending like a day and a half on making VS Code in the Jinja templating system that Django uses in Django and Prettier, which I really wanted. And all that was like, enough. Like, let me just see how this works in like a little JavaScript world. And I'm still not really giving up on too much. And so to make that long story short, I ended up saying, you know what? This is really cool. I just spun up a whole thing. And like, now you mean to tell me I never have to manage anything related to like a proper server definition ever again? Like, yeah, I'm all for it. And then, I stumbled on like SvelteKit and actually taking it to like an even further level and simplifying it. And I'm like, I don't know why people use React. Maybe it's like Zuckerberg is funding this whole thing. Like this it seems like a scam to me. Like SvelteKit is just, it's half the lines of code that you need to write. Like for me, it was just phenomenal. And so, and again, I was like a rookie and I still consider myself a rookie in this world, but it seemed to answer all the questions that I wanted. And then I found myself kind of diving deep into researching, like, am I losing anything if I actually go all in on SvelteKit for various side projects, even if it's not for client stuff that we do? And yeah, so we decided that SvelteKit would kind of be our go-to for anything that would kind of be a better choice than WordPress, unless it's like a up to, I don't know, 15, 20 page thing where WordPress can really spin it up, stay informational and not too crazy. But if you want some logic, and WordPress can do it, I know, but like, you can really spin something nice with something like SvelteKit or, Next.js or whatnot. So SvelteKit just became the go-to, and recently released a huge update that James probably crushed a lot of the content that you've created, now that I think about it. But yeah, anyways, that was a long answer. But yeah, now we're in this like WordPress for client stuff, and then SvelteKit is the answer for anything else pretty much at this point.
So what are some of the determining factors, like when you have your decision tree of whether somebody goes WordPress or SvelteKit or whatever?
So to be honest with you, pretty much all client stuff is WordPress. It just seems easier for me. And
where do you host your WordPress sites, by the way? Do you have a specific one that you enjoy working
so
on?
I spun up my whole little world. So I use a system called WHMCS along with WHM, which is kind of like it helps you manage servers. And so I have like my own version of GoDaddy, if you will. And the back end of it is Droplets on DigitalOcean. So I host my own stuff. And again, that's also another whole journey that we can get into, but me realizing I'm delivering things to clients, and then randomly, if they're a few days late, like, should I terminate their Droplet, or like, what should I do? Like, do I just turn it off for a few days until they make payments? And so, I went into another like kind of rabbit hole of like, how would I kind of automate this a little bit better? And there's a ton of solutions out there. And this is why I think it's important to kind of stumble on different solutions, because I was comfortable with Nginx and Droplets and that whole world. I wasn't crazy good at it, but I knew how to get a Linux server up and running and to do certain things that I needed to, to get it really going and serving what I needed it to serve. And so WHMCS coupled with WHM allows me to pretty much just clients, if they don't pay, it auto suspends, it sends emails, it does everything for me. Even domains can live in my world, and like it communicates with via API with registrars that I can choose, and so it can even resell domains on my behalf. So clients that come to me literally have everything under my roof. They have a login, they have a password, they do all that good stuff.
Wow.
So a long answer to your question, but that's why we also feel like to really allow our clients to have like just a simplified version. And usually just the projects that we've taken are just a bit simpler. I know Dan, I forget his last name, but he's positioned his from Twitter, he's positioned his agency to be more of like a communicating with APIs and doing more of a front end thing and hosting it in places like Cloudflare pages or Vercel or whatnot. Just the way that things have rolled down the hill for me, it made better sense for me. It's not that I was like even running away from it or running towards it. It's just literally the deals I was closing at the time were like $200. I wouldn't go into spinning a whole thing, even if it's serverless, even if it's simple, like WordPress just made sense. So, but again, for like side projects, some of which have flunked and some of which are doing great to my by my definition of it, SvelteKit is the way to go. So that's kind of how we split it into two. And if a client, by the way, does come and tell me like that they want this whole thing, I may then, just kind of hand off that lead to somebody else that I feel would be a better fit, because I'd rather just focus our energy. If we are touching SvelteKit, it's for our projects and things that we are doing. And then if we're not, then here's kind of what we can do for you. And it's not too limited, but there's definitely trade-offs, depending on which direction you go.
So cool.
I love WordPress. I know it gets so much hate on the internet, but when you look at the stats and you're like, it's still powering 40%-ish of the internet, it's crazy. And there's just things, I mean, as much as I love the Jamstack, that when you're trying to set up either client solutions or even personal blogging solutions, like what James is talking about for his own personal site, there's moments where I'm like, WordPress gives you this out of the box, or there's a plugin for this, and it's easier. Might not be as pretty and sexy, but it's right there.
Yep. So a funny thing about WordPress is, I like to share this with everyone, WordPress has a lot of flexibility and it's open source. That's the biggest advantage that I could share with anybody about WordPress, but it's also the biggest disadvantage that I could share with anybody about WordPress. So like, its biggest advantage, ironically, is one of the, I think, biggest obstacles that people face. Like a lot of times when clients come to us and say, even if they already have, and this is what kind of led us into starting even to touch with WordPress when it was even initially just myself, you know, they come to you with like a million plugins. It's just messy. It takes like, you know, literally 30 seconds to load, or, you know, something like that. And it's like, you know, just messy. And so I think that's one of the biggest reasons why people either love or hate it. And so, you know, all that to say, like, if you know how to use the tool, it can definitely be powerful. Like, fun fact, WordPress literally runs the whitehouse.gov website, like the official White House website. I don't care what your politic thing is and what administration you like or don't. Obviously, some top security people are there and decided, you know what, WordPress can do this shit pretty darn good. And so they made that decision. And I feel like it helps for me in random conversations. I'll share that and people are like, really, WordPress? I'm like, yeah, good. White House, check it out. It's WordPress. So yeah, it can be really, really powerful and run government top pages and websites, or it can take like 30 seconds to load and be your biggest, you know, pain in the ass.
Yeah.
If you don't know how to do it right. So my rule of thumb is try to keep it to like 10, 12 plugins. Try to keep it premium if you can afford them, because they can do just a lot more rather than like piecing together a bunch of little plugins and, you know, limited resources. It's the way to go.
And if you're a developer that's doing this for multiple people, multiple clients, I had a list of vetted plugins that I had gone through and said, these are fantastic plugins, or a lot of them you can get developer licenses for. So like Gravity Forms, it was always my go-to for forms. And I had a developer license that I was like, okay, we can just roll it out across the board. And it helps you move faster because you're familiar with those things and the setup for it.
And it's exactly how we operate here.
Yeah. The one other thing I wanted to say, since she brought up dinosaurs, the dinosaur in me loves the fact that, again, I know it gets so much hate, but that WordPress is PHP, and that feels like a true web language, that you don't have to compile everything. You just stick it on the server and it runs.
Yep.
I love that.
For sure. It's a big advantage.
I'm glad. I was going to have like a similar call out, Amy, of like WordPress does get a bad rep, I think, a lot. You know, the last couple of years on social and that sort of stuff, but it still is like one, if it works for you, that's all that matters. If it works for the client, that's all that matters. And another benefit is long term is like clients who are not doing the work are more familiar with WordPress than anything else, right? So like that familiarity goes a long way too. I want to let Amy say her thing.
I just wanted to go down a quick rabbit hole. This is very specific. I saw a thing the other day where I don't know if the Gutenberg editor in WordPress has been abstracted or if somebody abstracted it, but they were talking about using the Gutenberg editor because it's built on top of React in other projects. That was fascinating to me. I'll have to go back and find.
Interesting. Yeah, I haven't
heard about that. Okay.
It seems like it would make sense though. Because I mean, you have the source code to WordPress, which means you would have the source code to the editor in there somewhere too, right?
Yeah, but it was just like, hey, just rip out. Here's everything for that Gutenberg editor. You can use this on like React projects because it's built off of React.
Although
this is fascinating.
I guess it's cool, but there are so many CMS, like if you, because essentially it sounds like you would just be going like, not serverless. What's it called? Endless. And so why wouldn't you maybe use, I don't know, any other CMS that maybe wouldn't be limited to, I don't know, WordPress editor of some sort. There's so many solutions out there if you're just looking for a CMS to plug into. There's a ton. It's overwhelming.
True. Thinking about the like side projects piece.
Yeah.
I want to can you like share a couple of projects that you have, and then also you mentioned earlier that a couple of them are like successful in your minds. Can you help define like what success looks like for you with these side projects? You can share whatever you're comfortable with. You don't have to share money.
Yeah, no, sure.
But yeah, whatever you're good with sharing. What does success look like for those?
To me, success is just either like a user base growing and I see some potential, or, you know, if money is coming in from sales and whatnot, then that's great. So a few of the projects are, for example, when I was learning deep into my learning journey, I stumbled on Tailwind CSS. And James, you did a video on this, actually. I forgot about that. So yeah, like I put, I started putting together like a theme, and then collaborated with a few other friends and got this, Tailwind CSS, like Tailmars thing going. To tell you that it was a success, probably not, because I paid those friends and I didn't want them feeling like they're working for free. And the amount that has come in from this theme definitely didn't justify, I think, just overall the time, dedication, resources, everything that I dedicated to it. And it's not sophisticated. It's like literally like, I don't know, 18, 19 Tailwind CSS pages that we all spun up together. And so, yeah, I don't think it became what I thought it would be, as like a more affordable alternative to Tailwind UI that I found to be really, just, if you're living in anywhere like, I don't know, India, Ghana, anywhere, half the world, really, that like $200 buy-in price minimum just was, to me, as a person that just got fired, I was like, Jesus, like, cool, but this is a lot. How am I going to explain this to my wife? It's this like, tech thing, but you can technically just do CSS. So like, how do I break it down to her that I think I should buy this thing, and that drove me to that decision to say, all right, you know what, like, let's give this a shot. And by the way, like, just a fun fact, like, I think launching the digital agency that I launched allowed me to actually get all these ideas all the time. Because I would stumble across so many bottlenecks, we still do, where a client wants a very specific thing and WordPress is the ultimate solution, but then we're missing like WordPress has like over 50,000 plugins, but you need that one specific thing that none of them will do. And so there you are, like, you have an opportunity to just spin up a plugin, and if there's 1,000 other people that could enjoy it in the world, they'll probably buy it. So, and that's another thing that we did, plugin for like this system called, it's an ATS system for recruiting. I have a few clients that we built like a recruiting staffing agency. And so they needed to connect to their ATS system, the ATS system that they were using, which is for anyone who doesn't know, it's like a recruiting platform. There's a million out there, legacy all the way to like a bit more that claim that they're more modern, but either way, to connect to those so that you can pull like the resumes and the things that the recruiters in the company are doing, you need to somehow integrate with those platforms from your website. And so that presented another opportunity. So we launched like a WordPress plugin. To tell you that also made sense, we randomly get like, I get like a sale a month or two. I don't do anything. The platform that we did it for literally says, we don't have a WordPress plugin, but here's a company that developed one. The reason I don't think it's successful is, again, just from a resources perspective, I didn't realize what it takes to also maintain a plugin for WordPress. It seemed to me initially like, oh, here's a great opportunity. I see that this company is not real. I reached out to the CEO asking, hey, are you planning on doing a WordPress plugin? Like all that, got confirmation that it makes sense from a technological perspective, but resources wise, like I found myself doing share screen with clients that bought it because they couldn't figure out the damn thing of how to like, they wanted, the plugin worked, but like they wanted to customize this and do that. And I'm like, well, you gotta, into Elementor Builder, there's a little CSS where you can add some customizations, and then you gotta figure out, and then adding certain features to the plugin, but like it's only one or two people that ask for it. And so it just has not made sense. The plugin is still live. I randomly refund, we randomly update, but like, I'm constantly asking myself, should I just shut this thing down? Like, this makes sense. For $30 a year of a license that I'm giving it to people, like I'm, giving them really just an enormous amount of feedback and responsiveness when they reach out asking questions. And it's usually just not justifying the means. So that's another example. A fun one is Limey, another example of just running a digital agency and stumbling into ideas and realizing there's an opportunity here. A lot of folks that we bring on are either with crazy builds in WordPress that have like a million plugins and it's messy and it's like this door you open and a bunch of shit just falls on you.
Pandora's box.
Yeah. Or like they get overwhelmed from something like Squarespace, Wix, and all these builders where they're really no code, but like there is like a learning curve to them. And as we were really just offloading from these, we still do offload from random platforms, one day I call this nonprofit that reached out, and the guy answers me, "Oh, I'm so happy you called. I'm on Wix right now. I've been spending 3 weeks on this damn thing, and I just can't get it to do what I have in my mind." And I'm like, well, I'm happy I called. So we built them a website on WordPress and did all that. But in my mind, I started to think, even Wix and all this drag and drop and random things. And again, like, they all serve their purpose and all are good and have clients and are wealthy, rich and whatnot. And it's all good. But I still felt like there's an opportunity for a builder that really dumbed it down. No drag and drop, no, special bells and whistles, and like really just dumbing it down. Here's an input box, plug in your stuff. You're literally not doing anything. We do everything for you. And here's the page that you're going to get. You want to customize? Go to a different platform. That's all good. If you're cool with what you're seeing here, then here's the limitations and here's what you're going to get right out the box. And that's why we launched Limey.io, which is on SvelteKit. And we are dreading updating it to the newer version of SvelteKit. But it's doing well. We just got featured in some newsletter yesterday by Simon. And so Simon, I don't know how to say his last name. I don't want to butcher it. I think it's Hoberg or something along those lines. He runs FeedHive.
Yeah, I say Hoiberg. I don't know if that is actually
Hoiberg,
correct.
yeah, I didn't want to.
That's what I say, but Simon's awesome, by the way. I'm a big fan of like his sharing in public, building in public, and just like the knowledge and experience that he brings from particularly building that out. But I think he's gone through like iterations of other things as well.
I'm pretty sure, by the way, also FeedHive is it's on AWS, but it's on like a serverless concept. AWS.
Yeah. He did a video on YouTube talking about how he built his whole thing on serverless, and I think I just saw a post from him that he is at. Don't quote me on this, but I think it was 20,000 MRR, which is monthly recurring revenue.
He tweeted something about it. Yep.
Yeah, which is amazing. Like, that's so cool. That's one of the things Amy and I have talked about, like, longer term, is being able to build a product of our own that we could make money from too. It's an amazing space amazing world to be in, that like we have the skills to just build something and potentially make decent money from it if it goes well, right?
Well, and the thing that I love about Simon's stuff is it's social media. It's like there's been social media managers and like retweeters and abstractions of that for years, and the fact that in some ways I feel like he's late to the game and then has still continued to do so well. Like, there's still space for that because there's still a need and people are not having that need met elsewhere.
So I would argue, I love that you bring this up. I would argue that sometimes it's an advantage to be late to the game.
Yeah.
An example of this is with Simon. I used to chat all the time, not taking any credit. He's incredible and all that.
No, it was all you. I've heard.
No, I just don't want people, but like he and I used to randomly chat, and because I would tweet really just bitching about it was
how doing social media with another tool sucked.
Yeah, Hootsuite, whatever. There's a bunch. I don't want to call anyone out, but there's a bunch of them out there.
You don't want to call anyone out, but
Hootsuite. No. I wasn't using them. I honestly gave them as an example because seriously, I was not using them. But there's a bunch of them out there, and I just kept complaining how for the agency we had these retainers that we locked in. And we were able to, and they paid us well. We were able to really just on a monthly basis focus on delivering to them a post a week on social media. And it just was so limited with what the tools could do. And one acquired the other, and like they were all just not really developing features and capabilities. It was literally bare bones. Hey, here's a calendar. Here's the way to do it. And that's it. But like if you really are a team where you want to get images involved and planning and creative and all that, and confirming the posts before they go live and before they get scheduled, all these bells and whistles that you can bake into this product didn't exist. And so Simon kept asking me like, hey, what do you feel that you're missing when you're whining about XYZ? And I'm like, dude, like I have a team of just 3 and we're using Notion and Asana and all this stuff to just before it even gets dumped into these tools where it finally gets scheduled. And Zapier is helping automate some of it, but like we're still so limited with these tools. And as I was using FeedHive, and I just felt like, he's seeing these limitations, again, going back to like being late in the game, he's seeing the pain points and like where they are struggling, and they're so big. at this point, literally, I mean, the one that we mentioned, and again, I barely used that one. It's not bashing. Hootsuite is making, I think, like millions or billions, or they're enormous.
Yeah.
I'd imagine that to get a feature across the board from their, company, it would take a lot longer than Simon, maybe with like 2 other freelancers saying, all right, let's get this shit done, because
He does.
I don't know, Eden told me that linking to Google Business My Manager as well as Twitter, and not just focus, like whatever, or anybody else told him, he can get a feature across within a week, or like a day if, it's quick enough. So anyway.
Every time I log in, it's like, while you were out.
We added this new thing. I'm like, dang, really? Already?
He's a beast. He's a different animal. I always tell him, like, you are just something else. It's impressive. So, yep. That's how we got to Limey. Awesome. I don't know where we left off with that, but Limey's on SvelteKit. Again, just being late to the game on that regard as well, seeing the opportunities, and realizing, let me build something super simple, seeing some alternatives that exist out there. There's a ton, and making that decision of, and Shopify being an inspiration, because I love Shopify. And Shopify's builder was really the main inspiration, where I felt, what if I even dumbed this down more? Because even Shopify can get overwhelming. Like, I have literally charged people that are like, even if you don't know code, just I keep messing things up when I'm clicking around in the builder. And I'm like, it's pretty simple, but I guess if you're not coming from tech and like, this whole thing, maybe it's overwhelming a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, using Shopify as like the main inspiration, and some of the WordPress stuff, and deciding, let me just, start building this thing, and then outsourcing most of the development just because I'm busy with the client stuff, and then having, touching base with developers that are producing it. So
yeah, makes sense.
I
love it. Love the ability to just build stuff. We are at an hour, so we'll probably take a couple more minutes. Do you want to do like a 2-minute answer on community? So like, why has community been important for you? And shout out to any communities that you're a particular fan of.
Sure. So I got involved, as I mentioned already, I was studying. I was a lonely bird in my house. My wife is nowhere near tech at all. Well, today kind of, but just was not. I needed somebody to bounce ideas off of. I needed somebody to ask questions. I literally had no one. There would be random days where I'm just walking around. I'm holding my kid, and my mind is like, how in the world do I do that with Python? Because I'm on like these, final stages of earning my little certificate with Free Code Camp, but like I have no one to ask. And so randomly realizing, oh shit, there's a whole forum behind Free Code Camp, and let me just go in there and start seeing like previous stuff that people were asking, and getting inspired by that, and realizing how I could maybe approach it. So I guess that's one community that I would plug in, Free Code Camp. Another one that was a huge inspiration for me, I'm honestly not involved in any of these communities anymore, just because I feel like I kind of got what I needed and I'm in a different place, but they're great for what they do. Danny Thompson, can't go without mentioning the biggest dog in the game when it comes to all this web development stuff. I remember he tweeted something about a hackathon, and me thinking, I can't join a hackathon. Like, what do I have? An HTML responsive certificate from Free Code Camp? And here I am, like, struggling with Python, and randomly stumbling on like WordPress and Shopify, and finally starting to touch those solutions. And Danny being like, dude, you can come, like, da da da. And I'm like, I don't know if I can. And he's like, you can. And I'm like, all right, I can. Fine, I'm doing it. Like, he's like, nobody's going to come with like any Shopify a little bit. Like, all right, so you come and you bring in, you say you know Shopify, say you know Word. I'm like, all right, bro. I'm going to do this. So joining his Discord, seeing just the energy and the pride, and also just seeing a bunch of rookies, and myself feeling as one, thinking, well, maybe Danny has a point. Like, let me just show up, and if I can't help, then I'll just sign out. And it was like this hackathon over a weekend long thing that they did, I think it's called Memphis Code Camp or something. I can't remember. I wish I could plug them in. I think it's Memphis Code or Code Camp or something. Memphis Camp. Give Camp, probably. Yeah. Sorry. Anyway, so I joined there, and I found myself, out of over 1,000 people that joined, somehow I'm the only one that ticked the box in the form of registration that knew Shopify. So I became this like little shiny thing. And it was only for a weekend long. And, you know, I'm hearing from Danny, like, I told you, you know, you never know. And I'm like, all right, like, I'm here I am. And I'm telling my wife, like, all right, this weekend, I need you to cover for me with the kids. Like, I have an opportunity here. And from that, I ended up meeting a bunch of, the whole thing of Give Camper or Memphis Give Camp is, they help nonprofits. And so you really just come, and it's like, if you're willing to volunteer any type of time, and in hindsight, it made sense that Danny was like, dude, just show up. Anything that you provide, they're coming in because they're desperate for help, and they're nonprofits. They all have great missions and, you know, desire to help and whatnot. So I showed up, and I found myself through a whole weekend, literally just going through people's, these nonprofits' builds and helping them, you know, clean up Shopify builds and adding this feature and that and removing this and cleaning up their stuff. And like, I think I touched like 4 or 5 nonprofits in total. But all that to say, like, join communities, they can help boost your morale. We all deal with some form of imposter syndrome. I think everyone that has any type of normal mindset hears that voice in the back. And having somebody, a bulldozer like Danny Thompson, just being like, you know, shut up, do this, you got this type of thing, or like a Discord that just, you know, together rallies up and gets something going. Like, it helped a ton. And then I did my own thing with just a community of like, we're like 25 people in a small little Slack. It's closed, nothing like that I'm trying to plug in. But like, I realized that the bigger communities, I miss some of the more intimate stuff where I could feel even more open and in various discussions, not even just code per se. So we slowly, you know, got a little thing going that we've been running for about 2 years now for Co-Chair Grow. And yeah, it's just a few of us in there, and, you know, we help each other out. And so I slowly, as that was going, I just felt like, all right, I want to eliminate some of the noise, these Discords and all these different things. Like, it can be really feel like you're in a crowd. So anyways, to answer your question, like, join communities, especially in the beginning, whatever floats your boat. I realized as I was stumbling across different solutions also, how many, you know, Cloudflare, they have a forum where you can go in. It's run by Discourse, the open source technology to run a forum. And you can join a forum there. Airtable uses the same technology to run their own community. Asana uses the same technology to run their community. So like, it's literally endless. And a lot of these companies realize that these little communities can help out even their own product mature into a direction where the community helps kind of call certain shots and influence those decisions. So even if you're dealing with something very niche, you might find, you know, whether it's not a Discord of some sort, like, you might find even a community by that tool or product that can help. So I don't know to tell you which community will serve you best, but for me personally, joining a few communities and getting, especially after getting fired and kind of having my confidence in the floor, it helped a ton. Like, I can't emphasize community enough. I don't think I would be where I am today without those random moments of Danny and random people just kind of giving me a punch and being like, dude, you got this, relax, join, whatever. If not, nothing happens. You know, like, we all need it sometimes. So for sure, join whatever community you think will serve you best.
I love it. I've always talked about, like, I don't think I would have done a lot of things in my life if it weren't for the people that I've surrounded myself with, like, not even intentionally necessarily, like, just been fortunate enough to be around, but then also somewhat intentionally by making decisions to join communities and be around people that are doing good stuff. So I'm 100% with that. So I think we're ready to move into our last section, which is our picks and plugs section, where we pick something, share something that we've used, listened to, watched, bought, whatever recently that we enjoy, and then also plug anything we want as well. Eden, do you have a pick and a plug?
I have a pick and a plug. I have a fun pick. My parents overheard me sharing with my wife that I'm thinking of buying a Kindle, and if she's cool with me just kind of buying that and, you know, expensing something. And my mom calls me one day and says, hey, the Kindle's on the way. I don't know which version you wanted. And then me being like, oh, cool, it's not the version I wanted, but whatever. And long story short, a Kindle was at my front door. Amazon, like magic, boom. 24 hours, it's at my door, like 2 days. But yeah, it's been awesome. I've been wanting to buy it forever and just kind of like not doing it. And my wife would be upset with me with like the blue light and her trying to go to bed and like me being in bed. And I'm like, well, I want to read in bed. Like, I don't want to,
Mm-hmm.
So the Kindle has been really fun. I just bought the book Hooked. And so it's been pretty interesting. That's the first book in the Kindle.
It's a classic.
And the experience has been great. It takes a sec to get used to the Kindle because it's so like dry and simple and like not very smooth, if you will, but like you learn to like it in a way. And so I've been enjoying that. So that would be my pick. I guess my plug is joinlimey.io and, get a personal page going and tell people about it. And that would be it.
Cool. For what it's worth, I read on my Kindle every single night, and
Nice.
my wife reads on hers most night as well. We like sometimes we'll watch TV on the iPad or TV before we go to bed, but almost every night we read on our Kindles. We love them.
That's awesome.
Well, and I read faster on my Kindle because I don't get distracted by other things. Like if I'm reading on my iPad
Versus,
instead, I'll be like,
Yep.
oh, I just had a notification come through to check an email. What's this about?
Yep.
I'll get distracted. So
That's
I
actually a great
read
point. That's
faster.
one of the things I love about it. It's you're literally just it's
all
the
you're
book
doing.
and you, and that's it.
Yeah. So, James, you didn't ask me, but I'm going to jump into my picks and plugs because it totally plays off of yours.
Go for it.
Your face. So my pick, I feel so slow to the game on this one, is an app called Libby, Libby. And what it is it's like the library for your Kindle. So you go to this app, you can download it for free, and you put in, if you have a library card, I didn't follow this process.
Oh, a
'cause
local library?
Yes.
Haven't had one of
It
those in
has
a long time.
hundreds of libraries logged in. And you can also say on there, like, I don't have a library card. And I think it'll connect you with a local library to get a library card. But you put in your library card, and then there are thousands of titles that you can go in, and it has audiobooks and like digital books, and it connects with your
Interesting.
Kindle. So you can have the book sent to your Kindle. But you can go in and say, like, some titles are available, some titles you have to say you want to put on loan. But it also has, here you go, because I know you said you had kids, it also has kids' books on it. So
Nice.
my son has been obsessed with Diary of a Wimpy Kid. And so last night he was like, oh, they're on here. And he just downloaded one and just sat down and read like 200 pages. So for
Nice.
him, I'm like, anything that gets him excited about reading right now is a huge win. And he thinks it's cool that he's like, reading on the Kindle. And you don't have to worry about late fees or when they're due.
Right.
It's all
That's awesome.
digital. Yeah. So, and it's free. So definitely check that out, Libby. I'm a huge fan. And then for my plug, we were talking about the importance of communities. So I'm gonna plug the Learn, Build, Teach Discord. So this is the Discord server that James runs. I try and be in there as much as I can, but it's a fantastic place to find community. If you have questions, get help on a variety of things. So we're both in there, and then the moderators, the group of moderators that we have is fantastic.
Love it. I was signing up for Libby behind the scenes. I think I've heard of that from someone a while. Like maybe Brittany Postma has mentioned that. She's also a mod in Learn, Build, Teach Discord. Maybe she's talked about it.
Maybe. I mean, we were talking about it in a stand-up the other week. Somebody brought it up, and I was like, man, at the library. How boring. But then I downloaded it last night. I was like, this is awesome.
Oh,
it's all free.
It sounds like Goodreads with like a spin of like a local touch and maybe some other little things. Sounds super
but
cool.
I mean, some books that I'm like, I do not read a book unless I can get a digital copy of it. I don't care to carry around paper if I can help it. And so I've kind of avoided the library for that reason. I just don't want to carry around books, but the fact that it all syncs together is awesome.
That's cool.
Sweet. And I guess I will go next. So I'm going to do a podcast. We talked a little bit about learning languages earlier. There's podcast that I've listened to off and on that is really good called Coffee Break French. I think they do Coffee Break other languages as well. So what they do is they go and like get someone to tell a story, basically like a simplistic story in French. And then the two hosts will like break down that like 5 paragraphs into like sentence by sentence or a couple sentences at a time and explain like the grammar and some of the tricky things and some of the words. And it's a really cool way to listen to a podcast and feel like I'm actually like learning and being productive along the way too. So started listening to that again after not listening for a couple of months and been really enjoying it. So it's called the Coffee Break French podcast.
That sounds really practical.
Mhm.
If it's more conversational versus
Yeah, it
like
really
an
is.
academic word.
Yep. And
Or
there's
if you go to
definitely
that country, people laugh at you like nobody
Mhm.
uses that word.
like, yeah, you're like obviously reading from a textbook type thing.
Yes.
Yeah, I've heard a few phrases that are slightly different than what I would have learned like in a
Mm.
textbook, and that is pretty cool. So yeah, the Coffee Break French podcast, and then I will plug YouTube channel. So James Q Quick on YouTube. I do weekly videos on web development related topics, which is like the most vague thing that you could possibly say, but a lot of like modern JavaScript and VS Code and frameworks and headless CMSs and Jamstack and that sort of stuff. So that's what I do.
Nice.
I guess I could always look, but in the next episode, we are talking to Debbie.
Mm-hmm.
So that is going to wrap up this episode. And in the next one, we're going to talk to Debbie O'Brien, one of my long-term friends. So I think just went through a new career transition. So I'm excited to talk to her. In the meantime, if you enjoy the podcast, make sure to leave a rating and a review so other people can help find it. And that's all we got. Click. Cool.
Sweet.
Yeah, there's no like rating thing in YouTube. So I guess we'll just call it a day. Thanks everyone in the chat for hanging around and chatting for the first ever live episode on YouTube. So hopefully people feel like it went well. I think it did.
Thanks for having me.
Cool. All right. I'm going to call the broadcast